A question that I keep getting asked is why did Dana not put George Masvidal's BMF title on the line? Now, my response to this would be a guess at best. At worst, it would be speculative and will probably fall somewhere in the middle, but I have no actual knowledge. I will tell you as a viewer, this was one of the single greatest pieces of marketing that the sport has ever seen. I love opportunity. I think you would all agree with me. I don't like when we don't see opportunity. By example, I'm an amateur wrestling fan. As early as today, the University of Stanford dropped 11 Division I sports programs, one of them being wrestling. That pains me. That just pains me, particularly when a young person who had a goal, worked hard, did everything right, signed a letter of intent, signed up for school, moved out there, packed up and did everything they were supposed to do, now has an opportunity taken away from them. I just love opportunity. I love the concept, particularly fundamentally speaking, of the interim championship, but I also equally love the concept of a BMF title. And I wish that if we could think of more divisions and more ways to put more hardware and more trophies on the line, man, I'm for all the way to the guys that really want to get off their biscuit and risk it and go out and do this champ phenomenon. It's a cool thing, man. Collect that hardware, look back, put it on your mantle, have something to talk about in the next chapter of your life. Tell your kids, tell your grandkids. It's one of those things. It's very cool. Dana said, I'm not going to do this again. Now, Dana hasn't spoke very much on the BMF title at all. Even the night the BMF title was contested in front of a sold-out capacity crowd that had stars in attendance like never before. I mean, it seems to me that the team at the UFC came up with an idea that ended up being even they were surprised. It kind of seemed that way. Dana spoke on it one time, though, and he said, listen, here's what happened. I go into the matchmaker meeting. I got Craig with me, I got Sean Maynard, and I tell him an idea, which is Masvidal, or possibly it was even Nate, at some point in building that fight, in fact, I think it was Nate, said, let's find out who the BMF is, threw this title out there. And it was much like the night that Eddie Alvarez was going to fight Justin Gaethje for the title of most violent man in MMA. There was something about it that just worked, where you go, okay, let's do that. Good idea. So Dana goes into the meeting and he even said, I thought they were going to laugh at me. They loved it. And we went with it. And we spent 50 grand. We had this belt made, but I will admit to you, it's a one-off. Okay. And I think he even spoke to the fact that BMF and the fact that you had to use the letters BMF because you couldn't actually say on SportsCenter what BMF stood for was a little bit counterproductive. But I do think in hindsight, I think he was wrong. I think he had that, man, this was a beautiful idea and a beautiful concept. And that is a very real title that was contested in 5 rounds under the unified rules with a belt put around a way. That's a championship, period. So why does he not contest it here against Masvidal? What would be the point? I mean, let's just say that you do want to play that card later. And the whole idea that this is a one-off and we're never going to do it again. Well, yeah, it was never anything until it was something. So, of course, you could bring it back. And there is something equally as cool about the idea of a champion in a non-championship match. Now, I don't know that we've ever seen that in MMA. I don't know that that exists in the world of MMA. I think it was one of the reasons we never got Anderson and George St. Pierre together, or even Anderson and John Jones together, because they couldn't quite agree on the weight, and it was going to have to be a catch weight, and Dana just didn't really get it. How do I throw 2 champions in a match, but no champions on the... This is just weird. But the world of professional wrestling, which nobody ever likes to compare anything to, myself included in all fairness, but professional wrestling used to do this all the time, and it worked. Ric Flair, under the NWA organization, would go into matches where he was the world heavyweight champion, and it would be a heavyweight match, but it'd be a non-title match. For whatever reason, he'd walk out there with the belt, he'd put it on display, it'd be the main event, but then the announcer would announce this is a non-title match. Then Flair would lose. He would lose, but he wouldn't lose the title. Well, now you want to see the rematch so bad because now you know the other guy can beat him, and so you come back, you do the exact same thing that you already did, but now you put the title up for grabs, and all of a sudden business is even better. I'm not attempting to necessarily draw a correlation between what Ric Flair did in the NWA and what could be done with George Masvidal in the BMF title, but I will share for you, if you're going to draw that distinction, what would be the point of doing it in the same night? I mean, what would be the point of putting the Undisputed Championship on the line and the BMF title? If you didn't have time to build it, if you didn't have time to market it and do your press conferences, both guys walk in and which title is more important and more coveted, you could argue that all you wanted, but one of them's going to win the fight. The BMF wins the Undisputed Championship. The answer is BMF. That's the more coveted title. You've really got something you can run with there. But that's one thing that you do lose with the interim title. When the interim title goes out and gets defended against the Undisputed title, the guy doesn't then become the dual champion, where he's the interim champion and he's the Undisputed champion. And tonight he's going to put one of the two on the line, but which one will it be? It just doesn't work that way. All chips are in at all times. So I don't know that the BMF will ever be resurrected. In fact, if we're to ask the guy who's going to decide, which is Dana White, he said it's not going to be. But I also think there's a little bit of room there because that is a championship that guys want. And what guys are willing to do for a little piece of metal is really quite remarkable. I mean, go look at the Olympic Games. There is no money, no sponsorship, no monetary transaction changing play. It's all about a medal. We don't even know where that medal's made. We're told that it's gold. Other people that have one swear that it's not. It's just colored in gold. As though the founder of this, that not only didn't have to pay the principals, and it didn't even give him a piece of gold. And the silver's not actually silver, it's just painted silver. My uncle has one. My uncle's an Olympic champion. 1964 in basketball. He told me that gold medal's not even gold. Matt Lindland's got a silver medal. Closest I ever got to an Olympic medal. Matt Lindland had a silver medal. I held it in my hand. That thing wasn't even, it was painted silver. I only bring that up because what a person will do to have something that signifies and is accepted by their peers known as humanity, and everybody except whoever holds that golden rule, he with the gold rules. It's a very real thing. I would like to see that contested. I would like to see that live on. But when I'm asked the question of why is that not on the line, at least not in this match, I would have to counter by going, what would be the point be? The belt, while meaningful to the participants, in fairness, was created initially. If you trace back the lineage to the first time anybody ever put a belt up, it was meant as a marketing ploy. It was meant as a piece of marketing that then society caught onto, the media caught onto, and the fellow participants recognized. It ended up having a significance and a meaning that was never the desired intent. It's really a remarkable thing. Where a trophy or a belt or a medal comes from, the history of it is really a remarkable thing, how far it caught on. But if you are to trace it back and use that initial idea that it is a marketing ploy, I would then have to ask you once again, what would be the point?